Story 1. Probably Denmark. I think it was voted to have the happiest citizens for years in a row. I would not want to live in the Middle East because it is a dangerous area and a desert. Seems dry and boring. Story 2. Norway or New Zealand. I would avoid every country that is making the news, including all countries in Africa. Story 3. I would stick with my birth country, Canada. If that is not an option, I would choose my mother's birth country, Spain. I would avoid many countries at all costs. I enjoy having rights as a woman. Story 4. I would pick Japan because of its beautiful seasons, rich culture, and deep respect for community. I would probably avoid any place with extreme political instability or a lack of basic freedoms, such as North Korea and Russia. I would also avoid India because I am a woman. Story 5. I would try Canada or Northern Europe to see if they are really happier. I would not be reincarnated in the United States or its colonies or territories, not because it is the worst ever, but because it is just bad enough that I do not need a repeat. I would also avoid any other country that treats women like second-class citizens. Story 6. Probably pick either Denmark or Poland. Avoid anywhere in Africa, the Middle East, or Central and South Asia. Story 7. I am an American who lived for a couple of years in Germany, specifically Frankfurt. My quality of life was significantly higher, and I am trying to go back. Story 8. Bhutan's prioritization of gross domestic happiness in government policy and the prevalence of Buddhism make it one of the clearest-eyed cultures regarding the meaning of life. I believe most people who live there understand what truly matters in life. The Democratic Republic of the Congo faces challenges such as slavery, ecosystem destruction, child labor, and unequal wealth distribution. Story 9. I would choose either Japan or Sweden. Japan is known for technological innovations, and Sweden is recognized for its social safety nets. I would avoid America. Story 10. Underground Antarctica is a green, lush, tropical place to live in hiding. I would avoid every country on the surface of the earth. Story 11. Want Norway. Do not want Rwanda. Because of climate, I love cooler temperatures and dislike heat, healthcare, and safety. Story 12. I would avoid all countries where women are oppressed. However, I would probably choose Switzerland because of its amazing views, neutrality in wars, and high quality of life. Story 13. I would probably go to Scotland. The food is good, the people are nice, and the weather is not as bad compared to here. I would avoid essentially anywhere in Africa, the Middle East, India, and South America, mostly due to inhospitable climates and high conflict zones. Also, I dislike spiders, so no Australia. My backup destination would probably be Iceland. Story 14. A more important factor is whether you are born rich or not, to be honest. Aside from very poor countries like the Democratic Republic of the Congo, if you are born into a rich family, such as Elon Musk's, literally anywhere in the world is an option. If you are not female, being born as a native in Gulf countries means you are rich pretty much anywhere in the world. The United States would probably be the best place to become even richer if you were born rich. If you are middle class, I would probably choose somewhere like Ireland or Scotland. If you expect to be poor, consider a country with good safety nets like Sweden, Norway, or Finland. Story 15. Norway, since I live in Denmark, would be the only upgrade. There are too many countries I would avoid listing here. Story 16. Probably France, Italy, or Switzerland. I like that in Europe you are more dependent on walking rather than cars. When I went to Paris, I was walking over 10,000 steps a day and I felt great. Also, Japan. I love how clean everything is there. So respectful. Story 17. I would prefer either Finland or New Zealand. I would avoid the United States of America and all theocracies. Thank you very much. Story 18. Singapore has very strong social security systems and no significant conflicts with other nations. Haiti is a poor country that faces continuous challenges, including embargoes and natural disasters. Story 19. 60% of European countries, Canada, and New Zealand are my picks. Asia, Africa, and South and Central America are a no-go for me. The other 40% of European countries, the United States, and Australia are fine but have some things that I would rather not have to deal with. Story 20, maybe New Zealand. It has a good political climate but is warmer than Europe. Controversially, I would not want to live in Japan. There are many rigid cultural norms and pressures. Additionally, I have frequent nasal congestion, and blowing your nose there is considered a significant taboo. I would probably suffer from mucus buildup. Story 21. Switzerland is a very powerful currency, neutral, and overall very safe. Avoid at all costs basically any Asian or African country, as they are mostly dangerous, especially nowadays. Story 22. I would avoid Japan because of widespread hostility toward my ethnicity. Japanese racism against Koreans in schools includes insults such as cockroaches and maggots. Used as recently as 2018, racist anti-Korean literature is displayed at the front of some stores. Osaka ended its sister city relationship with San Francisco over a dispute involving comfort women. The manga Kankanryu promotes anti-Korean sentiment. The mayor of Berlin attempted to remove a comfort woman statue. Japanese schools have banned ponytails, fearing they might sexually excite men. There is a lack of awareness that cultural items, even if privately owned, belong to humankind and should be respected. A Tokyo restaurant reportedly banned Chinese and Korean customers. After controversy, Japan's coal mine site on Hashima Island was approved as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2015 as part of Japan's Meiji Industrial Revolution series. Japan and South Korea negotiated to include the site while addressing the history of forced labor. Other UNESCO members agreed that Japan did not fully fulfill its obligations, and mediation efforts continue. There has been a hostile takeover of a joint Korean-Japanese company. Japan has impeded South Korean marine research around Dokdo over 70 times in 5 years. There are ongoing efforts to erase Korean culture and history. Japan only surrendered after 2 atomic bombings. High rates of sexual violence persist in Japan, with 1 in 14 women experiencing forced intercourse, according to a 2020 government survey. This reflects patriarchal attitudes and practices that put many at risk. In June, the Japanese public broadcaster aired a segment explaining protests in the United States following George Floyd's death. The segment featured an animated video depicting protesters using racist stereotypes. There is limited discussion about historical atrocities such as Unit 731, the March 1st movement, the razing of Gyeongbokgung Palace, a contest to slay 100 people with a saber, and the Bangka Island massacre. War criminals who committed atrocities across Asia are still commemorated annually. Story 23. Germany is a place I really love. Avoid countries such as North Korea, Eritrea, Turkmenistan, and China. Basically, avoid dictatorships. Story 24. Want. Poland, never been but my family originates from there. Strongly dislike Stalin in particular for that. Do not want. Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Russia, China, etc. Story 25. Probably countries like Switzerland, Finland, and Iceland. I would avoid countries where I would not travel right now, such as Haiti, the Gaza Strip, and South Sudan. Story 26. No to Afghanistan, United States of America, United Kingdom, North Korea, Iran, Palestine, Israel, Yemen, Somalia, Sudan, Syria. My pick would be Iceland or Greenland. Fewer human beings means more peace. I am also fine with a very remote island, whichever place has relatively fewer people around. Story 27. I would choose England. If I were born in Finland or Norway, I would not know how good I had it. I would not know any other way. England is fine. I am interested in the royal family. I would have brought some flowers for Princess Diana. I do not like Colombia or Russia. Story 28. Sweden, most of my ancestors were from there. I would love to learn more about the culture. I would avoid the United States. I have been there and done that. Story 29. I think I would go for one of the Scandinavian countries. Norway, Sweden, or Denmark. I would avoid the United States and its territories as well as the Middle East. Story 30. The only other country I have been to is Canada. I thought the people there were wonderful. However, it was much colder going north, and I do not want a colder year to have to survive through. If anything, I want warmer weather. I would definitely want to still be American because the United States ultimately does have a better chance of changing for the people and supporting them again to rebuild a strong nation. I would really have to immerse myself in another country's culture. And I am sure every place has its pros and cons. I would not mind living somewhere that still lives off the land and nature. Story 31. If given the chance to be reincarnated, probably in a different country, it would be Thailand because they are very proud of their culture and are good at preserving it. One to avoid would be China because of their hunger for power. Story 32. I would pick the United States again. I couldn't imagine growing up in a homogeneous society. It would seem like the pinnacle of boring sameness. No offense to those countries. I know it's common to criticize the United States because some people voted for a proto-Nazi and others did not vote to stop them, but warts and all, I would have had a much less rich life if I had not been exposed to the countless cultures and different walks of life right in my own neighborhood growing up. No internet, just a community of people from diverse backgrounds crossing paths daily. To me, that will always be the essence of America and its greatest strength. There will always be authoritarian individuals trying to appeal to the worst in everyone in times of fear and uncertainty, but they will never be able to extinguish the good people working to build stronger communities and lasting peace. Story 33. Reincarnate in Canada, Ireland, New Zealand, or the United States. Avoid Pakistan, Russia, Turkey, China, and the Cape areas of Africa. Water is essential to life, as are breadbaskets or access to oceans for other foods. I would want to live where I can drink water or easily find water, not in places where lead contaminates the water or where droughts prevail. For example, China has very little potable water, and Russia has very little arable land. Story 34. Thailand. I have just heard that the culture there aligns well with how I conduct myself. Or Chile, because the cost of living is low and the quality of life is high. I would avoid the entirety of the Middle East and Northern Africa, and probably all of Europe as well. The reason is constant war. I want none of that. Story 35. Somewhere in Europe, and would probably not pick India, Pakistan, or anywhere in the subcontinent, the desert, or Africa. Story 36. As a citizen of the United States of America, my dream place to live is in South Korea, part of Asia. I cannot explain why, as I have never visited Korea, but I love watching Korean dramas. I enjoy the vibe and their culture. Especially, I admire the term older brother as used in Korean culture. I want an older brother figure to marry me. The country where I do not want to live is Iceland, as life there seems boring. Story 37. I wouldn't. I love New Zealand, and it seems perfect in many ways, but ultimately I think I'd still choose to grow up where I grew up in Los Alamos, New Mexico, United States of America. It's a town like no other, as almost every person in the town is a scientist working at the National Laboratory, where the first nuclear weapons and the first quantum computer were built, among many other things. It also has incredibly beautiful nature and amazing hiking, with national park quality nature in my hometown. The region around me in north-central New Mexico is incredibly beautiful and is an artist's paradise. And the culture is unique and strong. It's a very diverse place as well. As a country, the United States has problems, including ones especially prevalent in such a poor state as New Mexico. But these are problems I can work to fix as I dedicate my life to serving and helping others. It's also probably the most open country in the world to other cultures and the least racist country I am aware of. These might seem like strong claims, but hear me out for a second. I have friends in almost every country in the world and enjoy studying geography, geopolitics, and culture. The United States has a large population, so there are naturally more incidents of racism that can be talked about, but in my personal experience, almost every European I have talked to, either in person or online, has been far more racist than the average American, likely only because multiculturalism is new to Europe and not to America. Immigration, while famously difficult in America, is actually still noticeably better than in most of Europe, which is quite concerning. Side note, this comes from someone with full-time experience volunteering in a refugee shelter in New Mexico and advocating for the Nepali refugee community in Ohio. I think we can all agree that the rest of the world, excluding Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and Canada, is worse to live in regarding living conditions or, like Japan and Korea, has much more severe racism and social problems. I am quick to admit that those aforementioned four countries are better than the United States by every single metric, including multicultural acceptance, because they factually are. However, for me, my upbringing in a scientific research town with so much culture and natural beauty around, and the ability to help many people has changed my life forever. And I cannot think of a more perfect place I personally could have grown up. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Story 38. The Scandinavian countries, Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, are not only beautiful but also have a great quality of life with people who seem happy and healthy. I would avoid the Middle East and the United States. The United States has become a place of hatred and unhappiness. The Middle East is dangerous and oppressive. Story 39. I would choose America again, specifically Northern California. I have been all over the country and the world. In my experience as a minority in the United States, African American, I think the best place for a minority to find success and a good quality of life is in California. Story 40. It appears many want to criticize the good old United States of America. You can still start with nothing and achieve everything. I travel a lot, and it is amazing to see the progress being made in Europe. There is major construction everywhere. In some countries, it is very hard to own a car and nearly impossible for a regular person to own a house. That being said, I believe very few people would want to leave. Story 41. Why do you need to be reincarnated? If you want to try living in a different country, you can just try without dying and being reborn. Story 42. I would choose Spain for reincarnation because of the climate, the quality of living, the pace of life, and especially the freedoms I could enjoy. Given my status, I would avoid Afghanistan at all costs. Sadly, I also desperately need to avoid the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Belarus, Malaysia, Brunei, the United States Red States, Hungary, and even the United Kingdom for all the same reasons. And the Faroe Islands, forget the Faroe Islands. 800 hours of sun per year? I would rather get burned alive in Broken Hill by a group of angry locals than spend a night in Torshavn. Story 43. American here. Still picking America, not because we are the best country, but because I cannot get enough of the diversity of people, thought, experience, and opportunity. There is no other nation like it. I love the melting pot. I am probably avoiding Haiti. Story 44. Canada, then become an actor and singer and move to the United States like all the other Canadian actors and singers. Avoid any place other than the United States, Canada, or Western Europe. Story 45. I would choose the United States of America because of Taco Bell, Chipotle, Wendy's, Sonic, Chick-fil-A, and other fast food restaurant chains that are not available in the city where I live. I will avoid most of Europe, specifically the European Union. It is just not for me. Also, they do not have Taco Bell. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.